Like to lead us in the pledge of allegiance. Are you going to lead us?
I'm ready.
Oh, I'll bring you the microphone.
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Awesome. And now we have special. We are privileged to have 4 candidates who are running against Mr. Overmont. And if we could only put them into one. But here we are to hear this morning from our 4 candidates. I'm trying to figure out what the alphabetical order, that's the order is on, but I have to only read it to you. So alphabetically, Cedric's not here yet.
Cedric is not having a
Oh, I didn't know. Okay. We have Edwin Alonso, Paul Chicali, and Alexis Claiborne and Tessa Hodge in alphabetical order. And they will be speaking for 10 minutes, telling us on fire why we need to vote for them. And we'll have 5 minutes to question each one individually. And then at the end, if there's a little more discussion, that'll be fine too. So I'm hoping by now everybody at least knows who these good folks are. Edwin Alonso is going to tell you about himself. And David, thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here and for spending your time on a Saturday listening to me. Again, I'm Edwin Alonso, and I want to highlight how great this victory is for us. We are considered a strong Republican district, and the fact that we are part of the districts that flipped pro Prop 50, I think we're at 58% that voted in favor of Prop 50. That's a big turnaround. That's a 30% turnaround in our election results, and that's encouraging for 2026 and all the things that we want to do as a people. Because in reality, this victory isn't the Democratic victory, it's the victory of the people. This is the victory of people standing up and saying that what is happening is not normal, what is happening is not right, and we need to do a lot of what you heard. I heard from people I respect is that they didn't support Prop 50, but they were going to vote for it because they felt that it was the only way to fight against this illegal power grab that this tyrant is doing. And as they say, except for Tyrannus, we're going to win. We're going to beat them. And it's not going to be because we're Democrats, it's going to be because we're Americans. And when Americans move, when Americans walk, when Americans stand up, we win. It's what happens. We have the power together as a people. And what they've done is divided us. And that's why we're so weak. That's why you see breaks across the world taking dominance. You see other countries trying to step up and interfere in our elections because they see that divided we are weak, united we're strong, and we've proved that with 50. You should be proud of that because I know a lot of you walked, a lot of you spoke to your neighbors, a lot of you made phone calls and spent hours speaking to random people. And I saw some of you in those phone banks along with us, me and my wife, spending those hours eating tons of carbs, trying to just call people on the phone. And that is encouraging because I was talking to folks earlier and I was telling about my mom. And again, I'll mention again, my mom lives off of $1,200 of Social Security. And where we live, that's not enough to pay for an apartment, for a 1-bedroom apartment. And so we're blessed to be fortunate enough to have the resources to live together. And so we get to share those expenses, and we have that family dynamic. And I say it's a blessing. It's definitely a blessing. And I was watching. I'm a kind of a nerd, scientist by trade. I was watching a video about this anthropology professor talking about how we're one of the only three animals that are evolved grandmothers. Uh, our females stop producing halfway through, and the reason why, he says the reason why is because we need that knowledge. We need that reservation of experience to help, because it takes a village to raise a child. It takes more than just the parents to raise a kid, to get them ready for school, to get them ready and educated. And we need to make sure we have the resources in our people's hands. It's SNAP benefits, Social Security, Medicaid, child care for school, after school. We used to pay $900 every month for childcare to just have somebody pick up our kids, drop them off, and then hold on to them for an hour and a half till we can get off work and pick them up. Most people can't afford that. That's insane. We're lucky enough now that we fought and bugged the school district, so they got after school programs. So we're able to they hold on to the kids and help them do their homework and stuff like that. But again, that is a village. That is something that we can have. I mean, I would be great if people like my mother could go help in school to read to these kids, to get them, ready for the next level, to use their experience. 35 years taking care of patients, that's somebody that can teach a child about empathy, about taking care of someone else. So that's necessary, but she can't take on extra work because then she'll lose her Social Security. So she won't be able to pay her bills. She won't be able to get her food if she had to depend on it, because she can't take on extra responsibility or extra work, because as soon as you make a little bit of money on Social Security, you're screwed. You lose your benefits. If you have a pension, you lost your Social Security. They take that away from you if you get a pension from your work. You earned both. You should be allowed to collect both. You should be allowed to contribute to society after retirement if you choose to, without losing your benefits. These benefits have come from our tax dollars, and they benefit our society. We can see if you walk through Walmart, some of these Walmarts, they have signs up that say prices have gone up, or SNAP, this was paid for by SNAP and now it's more expensive. These benefits that we pay for through our taxes for our people benefit our society, benefit our small businesses, benefit our large corporations. Walmart, most 40% of their business come from SNAP. That's our tax dollars. How is it that we don't, as citizens, don't get the benefit of our hard work when we need it? The whole purpose of our government is we the people, in order to establish a more perfect government and I forgot the whole thing. To promote the general welfare, that's in our preamble, to promote the general welfare. That's the purpose of our government, to provide the services that we cannot do for ourselves. I cannot fight another country's army all by myself. I need a whole lot of other dudes to go with me, and I need a whole lot of people to chip in money to pay for equipment to go do that. Same thing with roads, airports, hospitals, food. I don't know how to grow food. I don't know how to drive a truck. I don't know how to store it in a warehouse. I know how to inspect a warehouse. I know how to protect the water. That's my function in society. And my function in society is to protect the environment, to provide children. I'm a parent. I have a place in society, and other people have their places, and we need to make sure that they're able to do it. Those workers need to be able to be focused on their families, focus on their work, and not have to worry about a second job, or whether they're gonna take a promotion or whether they're gonna have childcare for their kid because it's too far away. Because that is the thing I faced in the past, where I couldn't take a better job because it would make me unavailable to pick up my kids at the right time. So my family for a time missed out on those additional resources because I had to think about where I had to be and how far that drive is. And so we need to have experience. We need to have somebody that's going to go in there and fight, that knows what it feels like, knows what it feels like to be hungry, knows what it feels like to require these services. So when somebody says that's too expensive, no, human life is not expensive. A child's hunger is not expensive. Our citizens that we need to grow up to be strong so that we are safe against other nations, so that our soldiers, our doctors, our educators are the best in the world, have to grow up with full bellies so they can focus on their studies. It's taking away SNAP benefits, is making hungry kids, it's weakening our national defense in 20 years, because that's what it is. And that's what we need to focus on. We have to be a village. We have to think long term, why we have these benefits, why we go after these, why we plant trees that we are never going to enjoy the fruit of as adults. These are for our children, for the next generation. This is to leave a legacy that represents us as a people, as a nation. And that's all I have to say. I'll take any questions. Sorry.
Well, pop-up microphone.
Yeah.
For the record. Hello, no, okay, good, it's working. So, you came to us once before, yeah,
Yes, sir.
and I remember you very well. Thank you for coming last time. I may have asked you this question then, I'll repeat the same question. Are you pissed off?
Pretty pissed off. I mean, I'm a private person. I'm standing out in public and saying I'm pissed off. It doesn't sound like it. I try to stay calm. I've been in some tough situations as a Marine, and that's allowed me to be calm and cool and collected in situations where normally I wouldn't. Yes, I am pissed off.
Good, I couldn't really tell from the way you were speaking. That's why I needed to know.
Well, thank you for
Thank
asking that question.
Anybody else?
Hi, thank you for coming. This week we had a meeting, a town hall meeting with our state senator. And there was a lot of, it was really interesting, not always in a good way. But there was a lot of discussion about the Western Joshua Tree and protection efforts for the Western Joshua Tree. There's a lot of significant misinformation about what conservation looks like. And I'm wondering if that's an issue you have focused on and you can speak to that.
It is an issue I have dealt with as a cleaning inspector. We do construction jobs. One of the things is environmental assessments that we have to make sure. We have to make sure that the needs of the environment are met when I do construction inspections. And that started with my career, and that's also part of my personal thing at home, where I've done, because I like the job. I think it's a great piece of grass, because it's what it is. I love its history with the giant sloths and how it propagates, and the seed that it goes on top, and how it propagates through its root system, and how it can send nutrients and communicate all its crazy stuff that it does. Yeah, I'm a fan of the tree, but I also understand that we need development. And I understand that whole BS about, oh, they relocate the trees. Those trees die. They die when you relocate them. Their root system is necessary for them to survive. So there needs to be an actual plan, an actual location where they're going to be able to exist and propagate in a way that we can incorporate them into our environment, our cities. We don't have to have all maples. We can have some Joshua trees in our colleges. We can have some around our neighborhoods. There's a way that we can preserve them in. So when we do city planning, one of the things that I deal with is retention basins. It's basically where the water goes in your neighborhood, like where the storm drain goes, and then it usually goes into this wetlands or dirt area where it drains it, soaks into the ground, and that's how we clean your drinking water, by the way. Don't throw soap into your drains, into the storm drains. Don't throw soap into the storm drains. When you wash your car, let it go into the grass. Don't let it go into the storm drain, because that goes straight into the retention basins. That gets infiltrated straight into our drinking water. And those areas are the areas that we can utilize. We utilize more environmental, more natural methods of taking care of our water, taking care of our streets, taking care of our areas that we live in, walking paths, create more things like that. We can utilize those areas to preserve our natural trees, our natural bushes, our natural species that exist, because honestly, in our desert, we have some amazing species that can do some great stuff and great minerals. I mean, we became famous for the quartz that's right there near where I live. That the Norton bomb site was created from that glass that's made from that quartz. That has to be preserved. I mean, who knows the resources we have? We can't just go blasting and destroying our environment if we don't know what benefit we have from it, or what future, how we can, in the future, we can see that we don't have to lose everything for today. So, yes, I'm all for protecting it. That's how you can. That's too long an answer. Okay.
Sue. Oh, I remember.
You mentioned earlier during your introduction about division and conquering. Certain countries do that. And for me, I've been a Democrat my whole life, and I believe in everything. You know, but lately, I think everyone can see that this division is destroying and conquering our country. And it made me think, yes, we've had Democrats and Republicans for decades or hundred years, 200 years. Okay? And but only now it's gotten crazy. It made me think about what each of us really want. And it seems to me that both sides want the same thing. They want to feed people. They don't want people to starve, but they have their own way of doing it. Republicans have their approach that they want to do, and Democrats have their approach. And both want to build their communities. They want to have strength of families and their communities. Everybody wants that. But again, they have their way of wanting to do it, and we have our way of wanting to do it. Is it possible that we can come together somehow and at least accomplish these basic things that people need? You know, I mean, there are other issues that we can deal with later, like for example, the food issue. I've gone to some of the food stations where they give out food, and it's crap. It really is. It's junk food. It's stuff that people don't want. It's expired. And they give it out to poor people. Because beggars can't be choosers. But I wonder, well, why aren't there more community gardens? Why are there aren't more community farms? Why can't we come together and do something like that?
Come together, that's.
So, yeah, I absolutely get what you're talking about. And one of the things I learned when I was in the Marine Corps is that we have a different language than the other services. When we go on ship, the Navy has totally different language than us. So when they speak on the radio, it's different than us. The Army is a different language than ours. And I think that's what we're missing with the other side. Is the communication is they're saying the same thing half the time, and we are too. It's just we're focusing on what word we're using to call it. I think we need to move away from some of the stuff that we need to focus on things that bring us together, like family, like people, like work, like we're providing for workers because it's workers who do everything. And I think we're going to have to focus and bring the language down into a point where it's universal, a universal language that everyone can understand and agree with. Because when it came down to Prop 50, we're fighting for our freedom, we're fighting for our Constitution, and it was clear. The language used in that was very clear, and everybody understood what it was about. And so they rallied, no matter what they voted for last year, they voted for it this year. And I think that's the way we
Thank you very much. Alphabetically, our next candidate is Paul Chakalian, and 10 minutes and 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So I just want to start by saying, when was the last time, raise your hand if you've seen Jay Obernolte since his town hall? Anybody? I haven't. Yeah, I don't know where the fuck that guy is, or what he's doing, to be totally honest. And that's why I'm up here doing this, because we deserve real representation. We deserve somebody who's going to show up somebody who's gonna frankly give a shit, somebody who's gonna listen to the struggles that we're facing, to the fact that we have relatives who don't get enough money in retirement to afford shelter, let alone everything else you need to survive. Families who have to choose between working or taking care of their kids, and it's a wash either way. And so these issues are really big. And to have a representative that's not even here, that's not even showing up, that's not lifting a big finger is unacceptable. And so that's why I rose my hand and offered to run. Now, full transparency, I don't want to do this at all. It's incredibly uncomfortable and tiring to ask people for money and convince them that your heart's in the wrong place, to have people talk crap about you and spread lies and put your name out there. It's not a rewarding or fun job or experience, but the stakes are way too high for any of us to just not do anything. And I spoke to a lot of campaign consultants, career politicians, prior candidates and elected officials. And I said, is this a way that I can be of service to my community? And they said, yeah. They said it's a long shot, but yes, Paul, we think that that it would not be a waste of your time because I don't have time to waste. And I said, okay. Talked to my wife, and we said, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to volunteer. We're going to raise our hands to be of service. And so, so I am offering myself up as a candidate to be of service for all of us. I said I don't want to run, and I don't even really want to be in Congress, if I'm being honest. So fly back and forth every few days, barely get to see my kids. You make dick for the amount you have to travel and what the job entails. But what I do want is my community to have a voice and my community to have the resources that it needs right here and right now. And we're not getting that from Jay, and I didn't see anybody else stepping up in a credible way to be able to provide that. And so I'm willing to do a bunch of things I don't want to do in order to try and better my community, in order to try and better my country, and in bettering my country, also benefit the world. Because unfortunately, when our politics get screwy, when the GOP and the MAGA turn into a dictatorial kleptocracy, the whole world suffers. Fascism and dictatorial powers around the world take that opportunity as a green light to subjugate their people, to commit genocide, to expropriate more money out of their own natural resources, to line their own pockets. Democracy around the world starts to fall apart. So not only are our families struggling, falling into institutions, not only are our communities going further and further apart, becoming further and further divided, but the whole world is on the precipice of a really dangerous place. And so despite how much I didn't want to do this, despite how much I would much rather be with my two little kids that I haven't seen in a week right now, the stakes are way too high for me not to do something if I can. And that's why I'm here fighting for us. I'm fighting to pass universal child care. I think it's absolutely essential that we allow adults to get back into the workforce, to allow kids to have a safe and secure environment to grow up and to learn and to have that family balance so that when they are with their parents aren't stressed out, overwhelmed, and can actually be present and attentive. And so that employers can have access to workers who aren't worried about and distracted and by how they're going to take care of their kids, how they're going to buy diapers, who's going to wash them on Tuesday, etc. So it's a net benefit for our economy. It's a net benefit for moral goodness. It's a net benefit for the future generation. We need to address affordability, and that's not just housing, which is obviously a huge issue in California. It's everything. It's homeowners insurance, fire insurance, auto insurance. It's utilities, electric, gas. It's the price of essential goods like groceries, and also, what are frankly also essential goods like cars. Or plane tickets or train tickets. Everything has become incredibly unaffordable. Some of that is unavoidable inflation, and I understand that. But we can't only look at lowering the prices through things like rent control. We have to also look at raising incomes. And the fact that minimum wage at the federal level hasn't been increased in 20 years is ridiculous. Many, many, many other federal budgets are pinned to inflation. They increase every year, every 2 years based on PPI. The fact that minimum wage isn't is unacceptable. So there's a lot of work that we need to do to fix our country, to improve our society, but we can only do it if we win. We can only do it if we beat Jay Obernolte, who does not deserve to have the job, who does not care about us, who is not here, who is not listening, and frankly would rather fly his private jet to Mar-a-Lago to go feel good about himself than he would to actually try and lift a finger and deliver for us. And if we win, and if we're successful in beating him, and if we take the House, and ideally the Senate, and ideally the presidency, we can start to make some change, but it all happens one election at a time. And I think with that said, I just want to speak a little bit about my plan to beat Jay, because that's what we're all talking about here. It's not just about convincing you, and it's not just about winning money. We have to actually beat Jay. Derek wants to raise $1 million, got 40% of the vote. He did amazing work. He worked his ass off. He's a great guy, but he lost. And so if we don't win, none of this matters. And so I think Jay is incredibly vulnerable. I think it's been our race till we lose every election for the last 6 years, for the last 3 cycles. He never shows up. He's widely disliked. He's not really inspiring any passion, even amongst his Republican and independent, conservative-leaning independent constituents. I don't know what he's delivered for them either, and they're aware of this. I talked to them. So he's an easy mark. He was worth what, 25, 30 million when he got elected 7 years ago, and now he's worth north of 100 million. That's not a normal growth curve for someone who's not taking advantage of their elected position. There is a lot of angles to attack this guy. He literally flies his own twin-engine jet back and forth across the country, but won't drive down the hill to Victorville or Hesperia or Redlands or Joshua Tree. This is an easy guy to attack, but we have to do it in a credible, consistent, clear way. And my plan is to do it. And my plan is to do it as an authentic representative of this community. I have kids here. I own a business here. I shoot guns here. I go off-roading here. I have a PhD in environmental science. I understand the issues. I come from a family, small business owners. I understand what that side is talking about too. And you know, when people complain if minimum wage goes up, they close. I understand those realities as well. And so I can really speak to both sides of many of these issues. And finally, I just want to say it also takes empathy and it takes curiosity. And what I always say is a big part of my job is sales. I'm in the liquor business. And if I go into a bar and you're the bar buyer and I ask you, I tell you, oh, you're pouring Tito's. Did you know Tito's is crap? Factually, I have the report. It's really, really bad. And actually, the scientists say that my product is what you should be selling. And really, honestly, you're kind of an idiot and you're operating against your own interests when you serve your customers this really bad vodka. Can't you see that you're operating against your own interests? Why would you do that, dumb idiot? Buy my product. No one's going to buy my vodka, right? So what you have to do when you're in sales is you go and you're very demure, you're very differential. You ask a lot of questions. You have to seem genuinely curious. Tell me about your business. Oh, you're selling Tito's. That's cool. Tito's is okay. Why do you sell it? Do your customers like it? What do you think about it? Tell me about the challenges you face in your operation and how I might be able to help them. Well, it's the exact same job in politics. It's good to have smart technocrats who could craft, intelligent policy, but if they're not good salespeople, they don't win elections, and then it doesn't matter what kind of great policy ideas they have. And so when we go and we talk to our neighbors, to our community, we have to first always start with genuine curiosity, genuine empathetic curiosity. Before you judge someone for driving a big truck or for having a Trump flag, we need to start by saying, hey, what's your name? What's your life like? Where'd you grow up? Why do you think what you think? Like, what experiences have you had that have led you to this place? And what challenges are you facing that I might be able to help with? And then you guys might realize that you both don't know something, that they might say, for example, I drive this big truck because it goes vroom vroom and I like it. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't make them a Nazi. It might makes them a little less educated on certain issues than you, but that's completely acceptable. And then you might pitch an electric truck to them, right? Go get a Rivian. And they might say, well, I've heard X, Y, and Z about electric trucks, which is why I don't like them. And you might realize you don't really know those details either. And until you sit there and you pull out your phone and you look up the facts together and you have a civil, cordial, empathetic, respectful conversation between two adults. And that's the only way that we're going to win hearts and minds, and not only win this election, but fix our broken society and mend those wounds and bring us back together as a community. And so that's my plan. That's how I'm going to beat Jay. That's who I am. And now we're going to open it up for questions.
Mark,
So it's my take that historically politics is and always has been the haves and the have-nots. That being said, how exactly would you try to rein in the outsized influence that the haves are exerting over the politics and the administration and basically the ruling of our nation.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. A lot of people ask me, what are your top two issues, Paul? And I say, well, do you want the ones on my website or do you want the ones in my heart and in my mind that I think are intellectually the most important? Because they're not the same, right? And I think what's most compelling and what's most familial and immediate for most voters is affordability, social security, veterans' rights, immigration, these sorts of things, right? But intellectually, what I recognize, and I think what you're talking about is our biggest and our most important problems actually are really nerdy. They have to do with campaign finance. They have to do with our electoral rules and systems. They have to do with the way that our democracy functions. And so while it's absolutely essential that we address the real lived problems that people are dealing with, we cannot continue to shirk fixing the structural problems that have led us to this place. The fact that we've allowed Fox News to operate as a quote-unquote news operation for 20 years when they're clearly an entertainment company. The fact that we're unwilling to even try to undo Citizens United. The fact that after Al Gore, we didn't lift a finger to fix the Electoral College, and then it happened again. And so we have to start taking these structural issues seriously. And my first policy priority is honestly public campaign financing, because I've seen up close and personal how much time our elected officials, career politicians, I'm talking Tammy Baldwin, Adam Schiff, people that have been in office forever. They're spending 30 hours a week. Go call any campaign manager, ask any consultant, fact check me on this. They're spending on average 30 hours a week dealing with fundraising content, proving copy, planning events, talking to donors, still doing call time. When do they have time to sit down and brainstorm and problem solve the nuanced solutions to the complex and serious problems we're facing? They don't have that time. And that's why we don't see any solutions being delivered. So I think it's a fantastic question, and it's top of the list for what we need fixed in this country.
Thank you.
Liz? Where do you stand on congressional members in investing in things that they have power over? I don't know how to say that properly today because my brain. Inside.
She asked about congressional representatives' stock trading. I assume like individual stocks is what you're talking about mostly. Yeah, so no, absolutely. Members of Congress who are privy to confidential information, the public is not, absolutely should not be able to trade individual stocks. If they have a pension that's in a broad fund, an ETF, something like that, of course, I think that should be allowed. But owning and trading individual stocks should absolutely be outlawed. As should being able to take, buy a $100 million yacht for a Supreme Court justice and call that a gift. And I'll just add to that, we also need term limits. Every single elected position in this country needs to have term limits. I have no interest in doing this job beyond, I think it's like 6 years, you get a pension and health insurance for life. And I'm like, that sounds like a good out, right around there. As I said, I want to see improvements in my community. I do not want to be a career politician. And so yeah, we need to ban individual stock trading. We also need to pass term limits.
Which is an interesting, Paul. Health insurance is one of the big issues facing Americans right now. And for Congress people to not only be collecting their salaries, but also have their health care when the whole country is suffering is beyond immoral.
I agree.
So thank you, Paul. Our next candidate, alphabetically speaking, is Alexis Claiborne.
Hello. I've been here a few times at this point, so most of you are familiar faces for me, so I won't bore you with my background, but I will go into a little bit of detail about my upbringing and what I think qualifies me and makes me the best candidate for this district specifically. And so I do currently hold elected office. In 2022, I ran in my small town for local office because I felt like my voice wasn't being represented. Our board at the time was made up of retired folks, and I felt like my generation, people that wanted to see progressive changes in our town, was not represented. So I decided to run. I won against all odds as a progressive young woman in a very conservative area. So that's kind of piece one. I've already done this on a very small scale in comparison to what I'm trying to do here, but I have already done this. I currently serve as the youngest board president that we've ever had. If you look at my voting record, you can see over and over and over again, I make sure that our constituents are heard. I make sure that the voices of the people are heard and represented at the table. And I make sure that I am doing the best good and using taxpayer dollars in the most responsible way every single time I make a vote. That's more than our current representative can say. So I held this position for the last 3 years now, and my term is up next year when this election takes place. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring because again, I see that our voices are not being heard. Our voices are not being allowed a seat at the table. We are not represented at all right now. And I can't sit back and let that happen. I want this district to flip. If it's me, that is fantastic. If it is one of the other 3 candidates here, that is fantastic. And I will throw my support behind whoever comes through the primary. Because the goal here is to do the best for our communities. The goal here is to do the best, make the most change that is going to be for the best good, right? Tuesday was a massive win across the country. We saw a Democrat sweep. Prop 50 passed, that's fantastic. And in San Bernardino County specifically, we voted yes. I think that this seat is, up until now, has been kind of untouchable. I don't think it's untouchable anymore. I think that if it is going to flip, it's going to flip in 2026. And we need a candidate that's willing to go in and clean up what's been done, and then leave it for the next generation, which is my plan. Because I never expected to be in the public eye like this, and don't love all the things that come with it, as Paul mentioned. Getting dragged on the internet every day is not fun. But I'm willing to do this for the greater good, and I'm willing to do this to fight for our communities. That's what I do with my career. I've spent my entire career working within our communities and making sure that we are uplifting the voices that typically do not have a seat at the table. I was raised by my mother and my late stepfather. My mother's a nurse. My stepfather was a firefighter. So I was taught to pull over and stop if there's a car accident and do as much as you possibly can before emergency services arrive on scene. I was taught to run into the building. I was taught to fight for every single person in our community because every single person matters, every single voice matters. And that is what I want to do in DC. That is what I want to do for all of you. I am not doing this for me, I am doing this for our community, and I'm doing this for each and every one of you. In my current elected position, I am accessible to every single person in my district, even the ones that disagree with me massively. I take phone calls regularly. I respond to newspaper articles that are written as smear campaigns against me. Even when it is hard to take accountability, I show up, and I show up in an accountable way and in a transparent way for every single one of my constituents currently. And while we are now officially in campaign season for the midterms, we're going to hear a lot of empty promises. And one thing that I can leave you with today as an absolute promise, this is something that I do in my work, I do in my elected position, it's just who I am. I will always show up for you. I will always make sure that you feel heard. I will always make sure that even if you're not directly speaking to me, you get a response that's not some generic email back from who we have right now as a representative, or some voicemail and you don't really hear from him, because that is the job. And if he won't do that job, somebody else needs to. And that's why I decided that I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring. That's why I stepped up to run, because somebody needs to do this job. And somebody needs to fight for each and every one of us and people that are not here today in our communities and in our district. So again, my name's Alexis Claiborne, and I'm running for District 23 in the 2026 midterms, and now I'll open it up for questions.
I should just stay there.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ran for Congress, won. She was attacked brutally during her campaign and called the bartender. What makes you believe that you can avoid the same type of labeling?
Oh, I don't think I can. This is soft now. Right. I don't think I can. I don't think I can. I think that I will absolutely come up against, I'm using my teacher voice now, I'm an educator. I think that absolutely I'm gonna come up against labels. I work for Planned Parenthood, so there's, there's one right there. A lot of people don't like what Planned Parenthood does. I don't think that I will combat that. What I can do is show my track record, show my character, and make sure that people realize that I am a representative of my current district, in my current elected position, and that's what I plan to do in PC. So call me whatever you want. I don't care. Exactly.
Dude.
You had mentioned that you had wanted to run for public office initially in 2022 because there were issues that you had that people weren't addressing at that time. I was just curious, what are some of the issues of the young people, maybe back at that time or now, whichever one you want to address, that were really bothering you the most?
Yeah, so my issue that I wanted to run on in 2022 was very much, it felt like our town was very focused on like things that didn't really matter too much to the youth, and young people didn't have anything to do. And so I wanted to make sure that we felt like we had representation, we had a voice, we had somebody that was going to fight for us, and that's why I ran. And now, like we got this massive grant when I first started and built a beautiful park. We're currently working on upgrading our bathroom system, which is something that the young people don't care too much about, but also is something that's very important and we need to do. So it was very much, I felt like we don't have anybody that has a seat at the table that's willing to say, hey, this is what the younger generation is saying, and this is what they need, and this is what they want. And so now, since I have started, we have had a lot more recreation programs that we've started introducing, and we've really been pushing more towards getting community involvement. And then currently, I think that we saw it with the Mom Donnie race. He won because he was able to show young progressive voters there is a better option, and I think that that's what people from my generation right now are kind of struggling with is, do I vote for the lesser of two evils or do I abstain from the vote? And we need to give them an option of somebody that aligns with their values, aligns with their views, and is a fighter and willing to go run into the burning building.
Other questions? Really, I guess you covered it all.
Fantastic.
Part of the tree. And it's hard to picture H being the fourth candidate, but H, Tessa Hodge, is also running for 2023.
Hello, everyone. I also have been out here before. I am so happy to be back. My name is Tessa Lynn Hodge, running for Congressional District 23. So I explained a little bit about my background the last time I was here, but just as Alexis said, I want to go a little bit deeper. So I am born and raised in the district. My grandparents have been in the district since the 60s when my grandfather retired from the Air Force after 22 years. And my grandmother was an RN at St. Mary's in Apple Valley for close to 30 years, which is where I was born. I have lived in Victorville, Apple Valley, Hesperia, Lucerne Valley, and Phelan, and for like 2 months in Redlands. So I really have lived all over the district. I have both my bachelor's and my master's in social work, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And as a licensed clinical social worker, I spent the first 4 years of my career doing child welfare. So I worked for San Bernardino County Children and Family Services. And unfortunately, our child welfare system, even though I worked in the Barstow office and the families that I worked with were in Barstow, when a child is removed from their family and placed in the foster care system, they can be placed literally anywhere, not just in the area, but in the state or in the country. And so I had children all the way from San Diego to Stockton and all over this district. And guess what? Every month I was driving up to Stockton to see that kid. And so I have worked with families all over this district. I have worked with the court system in this district. I've worked with attorneys in this district. I have worked with every possible family from every socioeconomic status and background in this district. I have also done community crisis response, where I assess for involuntary hospitalization for suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation. I have worked at St. Mary's as a medical social worker, and so I have a significant insider view of what is wrong with our medical system, what is wrong with our healthcare system, and what specifically is wrong with the healthcare system in our district. I have also done community-based mental health, school-based mental health, and I currently own my own private practice, and I've also done policy and legislation work for the county. And again, I've worked with families all over the district from every possible background. And my background is really what drove me into this field. So my parents divorced when I was very young. My mom was a single mom. She, in her 20s, was diagnosed with osteoporosis and rheumatoid arthritis. And if you know anything about rheumatoid arthritis, it is one of the most debilitating forms of arthritis. I remember my mom's knuckles would swell up to about the size of golf balls, and her hands were pretty permanently like this as far back as I can remember. So my mom qualified for disability, but disability was not enough to raise a child on. It wasn't in the 90s, it isn't now. And so my mom continued to work as a bartender. And with her hands like that, she would have to put the bottle kind of right here, and she'd have to use her hand like this to open bottles. And even with her disability, she still worked to put food on the table and to try to provide the best life she could for me. Now, because finances were tough, she was often forced to stay in very violent domestic violence relationships, which I was subjected to as a kid. And because financially the support was not there, she did what she had to do to make sure there was a roof over my head. At 16, I was unfortunately in a car accident that took the life of 2 of my friends. And after that, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I am much older than I look. This was back before the Affordable Care Act. So at 18, when I was kicked off my insurance, I didn't have insurance to get the mental health care that I needed for my post-traumatic stress disorder. And just like a medical condition, if you don't take care of your mental health, it gets worse. And after a period of time of not being able to get the help that I needed, I was unable to work. I was afraid to leave my home. I could not drive, could not be in a car without having a panic attack. Fortunately, at 20, I met my husband. At 22, we got married. And luckily, he had health insurance through his job. So guess what, baby? I was able to get mental health care because I got married. And so after that, being able to get the mental health care that I needed, guess what? I was able to get back in the car. I was able to go to school. I was able to get that bachelor's degree and get that master's degree and work for my community and give back to my community and be the success that I am now because I was able to get the care that I needed. I should not have had to just get married to get health care. That shouldn't be the way it is. But unfortunately it was, and if Republicans get what they want, guess what? That's the world that we are going back to, where I was only able to get the mental health care I needed, because guess what? I met a halfway decent guy. He's pretty decent. we'll excuse, he's crazy. So, why am I running? Not just because of my story, but because of my clients, because of my community. Because so many of the clients that I see, so many of the people in my community face the same issues that I grew up facing and do not have the services and supports that they need to be successful, to have upward mobility, to increase their status in life so that they can be successful. And in fact, we are at a point in time where current generations are not doing better than the generations before them. There has to be change. And so I am running because I've spent my professional career giving back to the community that I call home to create change in this community. And at this point in time, I've reached the maximum amount of change that I can do as a social worker, as a mental health provider. And so I've got to touch those systemic roots of what the problems are. Because that's really what the issue is the systemic roots are causing the problems that we see every single day in our communities. So my name is Cecilyn Hush, running for Congress in CD 23. Questions? Knew it.
They're both working. They both have brand new fresh batteries now.
So Eric Swalwell and Jasmine Crockett and some of the other more outspoken members of our Congress are really taking it to them
Yes.
in a big way. How would you join their ranks in taking it to them?
So I think that starts with really being true and authentic to myself. And let me explain that. So as a social worker, as a child welfare social worker, right? Very often I'm working with families who have a lot of stuff going on, mostly due because of poverty. County council, the judges, very quick to, no, cutting off services, not reunifying, these kids are just gonna be in the foster care system. I showed up to work every single day and I argued with county council and I would argue with those judges and I would argue with my supervisors to fight for those families that had no one else to fight for them. And I want to take that same fight because guess what? When you have spent 4 years walking up to random doors and saying, knock, knock, knock. Hello, sir or ma'am. I have this referral here that says that you are abusing your child. Would you like to let me in so I can talk to you? And you have nothing but a clipboard and a cell phone? Nothing scares you. Oh, nothing scares you. So when you have interviewed child murderers, when you have interviewed child pedophiles, when you have interviewed and worked with the people that I've worked with, nothing scares you. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to step up and this same fight that I have for my families, I'm taking that to the Trump administration and I'm going to call them out for the bullshit. And I'm going to work with Swalwell and I'm going to work with AOC and I'm going to work with anybody else who wants to call up this administration for the bullshit that they are doing to this country. As I was driving here today, I drove through Lucerne Valley and it was very interesting. There was an abandoned building. There was some graffiti on the side and it said, now he's raping America. Because he is. Because he is. And we gotta call it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
So my question, Paul, no offense to the Democrats here, I don't know how you guys vote or anything, but I have a big concern about trusting people that are running as Democrats because they most often than not have fallen in line with just being passive and not pushing enough progressive legislation. For example, Obama not supporting Mondani's run, endorsing him is very much like, oh, I'm going to follow in suit of whatever the DNC wants. How do you fall as far as that goes? Like, how do I know that you're not going to just pacify the masses and just fall in line with whatever the DNC wants?
So I think that really, my previous answer kind of goes to that also. It would have been way easier for me to just say, oh, the judge, county council wants to terminate services for this family. Guess what? If we terminate services for this family, that's one more caseload off of my caseload. That's one more case off of my caseload that goes to a different social worker that carries a different kind of caseload. But I didn't. I stayed and I fought, right? Because it was what I believed in. It was my values. It was my ethics that made me, forced me to not just take the easy road. I supported my mom, Donnie. Tuesday night, like anybody who is on my Instagram saw any post after post after post. My niece phone banged for him. She also phone banged for Deja Fox. At the end of the day, yes, I'm running as a Democrat, and I've been a lifelong Democrat because Democrats historically have been the party that have really fought for unions, have fought for people. Just because we're in a period now where we have some spineless,
Corporate.
follow the leader, corporate Democrats, does not mean that we just abandon. We can make the Democratic Party great again.
Yeah.
That sounds too Trumpy, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, it's came out of, sorry. We can make the Democratic Party fantastic. We can bring it back to its former glory. We can do it. And it starts with having candidates that have the spine to do that. And let me tell you, like I said, knock, 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 hello, would you like to talk to me about the allegation that I have? I got more spine than most people, so.
Other questions? Well, I thank on behalf of the club, the 4 candidates who took time this morning to be with us.